Forklifts. We're so comfortable working with them every day that we don't think about driving them safely, and that can lead to trouble.
Good morning, sir. Is there a problem, officer? You're driving too fast for this area.
Driving too fast. I've got to get some work done here.
Sir, you can't control your speed, and that's reckless driving. Now, may I see your operator's license? Easy. Now your inspection checklist.
My inspection?
Step off the forklift, please. Wait here, please. I want to run this through the computer.
We'd all be pretty surprised if we were pulled over every time we took a shortcut at work. After all, we've got deadlines to meet and product to move. In fact, half the cost of doing business in America is spent moving materials, and forklifts are the center of the action. But if they're not operated properly, if you take the shortcuts instead of the safe route, forklifts can be dangerous. It amazes me that over 37,000 forklift accidents happen in the United States each year. As a forklift driver, your work is important, not only to the success of your company, but also in preventing injuries and damaged goods. Driving safely and efficiently means knowing how a forklift works, how to inspect it, and how to operate it safely. Let's start at the beginning. How does a forklift work? The key is leverage. Imagine a teeter-totter. The front wheels are the pivot point, with the weight of the load on the front side, and a counterweight on the other side for balance. The farther the load is from the pivot point, the heavier it seems to be. There are three factors that can influence a forklift's ability to do its job: rated capacity, load center, and stability. Rated capacity is the top weight a forklift can lift. You can find this on the ID plate or in the operations manual. The rated capacity is usually based on a load center of 24 inches, which is the distance from the heels of the forks out to the load's center of gravity. If the load center is farther out than 24 inches, the forklift can't handle as much weight. Stability is the forklift's ability to resist tipping forward or sideways. To understand stability, imagine a triangle. The forklift is most stable when the center of gravity remains inside this triangle. Without a load, the center of gravity is here. Add a load and the center of gravity moves forward. Go around a corner and the center of gravity shifts to the side. Go fast enough and the forklift tips. As a forklift operator, it's up to you to gauge the load correctly and keep the center of balance within the stability triangle. You can test a load's weight by lifting it 1 or 2 inches, then stop and see if the forklift feels stable and if the rear wheels are firmly on the floor. If they are, and if the steering seems normal, it's probably safe to move the load. Now you may think you're ready to drive. Not yet. Let's make sure this truck won't fail. Like any machine, a forklift can have parts wear out due to use. That's why it's important to inspect your forklift at the start of each shift. Here's what to look for. Look at the mast for broken or cracked weld points and obvious damage such as dents. Make sure roller tracks are greased and the chains are free to travel. Be sure the forks are evenly spaced and crack-free. Examine the hydraulics for leaking fluids, loose fittings, or damaged cylinders. Check fluid levels and inspect mounting hardware on the cylinders. Check other fluid levels: oil, coolant, and fuel. Look at the floor under the forklift for signs of leaks. If levels are low, fill them. Look at the tires for excessive wear or splitting of pneumatics. What about the wheel nuts? Are they tight? Check the overhead guard for any damage. On electric trucks, inspect the battery case. Look for cracks, broken welds, corrosion, or other damage. When servicing batteries, always wear personal protective equipment to protect yourself from the battery acids. There should also be an eye wash station nearby. On LP trucks, check that the LP lines are tight and the tank is secure. If you need to work with fuel tanks, handle them outside and away from other workers. Keep away from open flames and hot work, and make sure that oil or fuel spills are cleaned up right away. Finally, start the forklift and check all gauges for normal readings. Lift the carriage to the maximum height and listen for any unusual sounds, a sign of possible trouble. Check the steering, horn, lights, and brakes. Be sure all control levers return to neutral position after use. If your inspection shows any parts that need replacement or repair, make sure you get it fixed before you begin work, and keep all the inspection forms and repair records on file. Once the forklift is inspected, you're ready to go. Safely operating a forklift requires good technique to prevent damage to the load, the forklift, co-workers, and yourself. Let's quickly go over how to pick up a load. Be sure the load is stable and secure. Square up on the load center and approach it straight on. Stop with the fork tips about 1 foot from the load. Make sure no one is standing near the load. Then level the forks and slowly drive forward until the load is resting against the mast. Lift the load carefully and smoothly. Tilt the mast back slightly to stabilize the load by moving more of the weight over the wheels. Never raise the load while you're moving. There are other safety factors to keep in mind as you move materials. Travel with the forks as wide and as low as possible while allowing space to clear uneven surfaces or debris. If you can't see over or around the load, drive backwards. If you have to deal with inclines and downgrades, travel with the load facing uphill. Never try to turn, because your center of gravity will shift and you'll tip. Turning makes the back of a forklift swing wide. When you turn, consider the front wheels as the pivot point. Slow down and watch your swing as you're turning into an aisle. Observe all traffic rules, warning signs, floor load limits, and overhead clearances. And always follow at a safe distance, 3 truck lengths from other forklifts. When stopping, apply brake pressure evenly and come to a gradual stop. Slamming on the brakes can tip the load. To put a load down, square up, stopping about 1 foot away. Level the forks, then drive the rest of the way in. Lower the load, tilt the forks slightly forward. Look over both shoulders, then back straight out until the forks have cleared. Materials may be stacked to save floor space. Make sure you're stacking on a pile that's stable and can support the load you're stacking on top. The higher you lift, the more unstable the forklift gets. So it's very important to maneuver slowly when picking up or placing loads on high racks. Let's briefly talk about other situations that you may run into. When working with docks or trucks, make sure dock board or bridge plates are secure. Chalk the wheels of the truck. Check the floors of truck trailers for breaks or weaknesses, and drive slowly. And what about parking a forklift? Lower the forks to the floor. Move the controls to neutral, set the brakes, turn off the motor, and remove the key. If you're on an incline, block the wheels. Sometimes in our rush to meet deadlines, we get overconfident and forget about safe forklift operations. Driving a forklift requires skill and good technique, as well as attention to safety. There's no forklift patrol to pull us over for reckless driving or endangering other people or damaging material. This is one time when we have to take control ourselves. By understanding how a forklift works, how to inspect it, and how to safely operate it, you'll be driving safely and getting the job done right. By driving the safe route, you'll have everything going your way.
Industrial trucks. They're a necessary part of every industrial operation in the world, and they come in contact with some part of every product we use. There are almost 1 million of these vehicles operating in the workplace, and they can be found in a variety of sizes and models. Many of them can be fitted with attachments to do specialized jobs. But because they work side by side with people in the plant, they present a constant potential hazard, because if used incorrectly, they can injure or kill operators and pedestrians and can destroy property. Therefore, before we can be trained to operate any one of these trucks, we must possess the physical and mental ability to operate safely. And before we can become authorized to use the equipment, we must demonstrate correct operating procedures and understand 3 basic areas of powered industrial truck safety.
The characteristics, operation, and limitations of the vehicle you're using. The hazards due to the characteristics of the area where you will be operating your truck. And the general safety rules that apply to all powered industrial trucks and their operation.
Every industrial truck has its own particular operating characteristics and limitations. And before operating any powered industrial truck, you need to understand that it is not an automobile.
These vehicles are designed with 3 or 4 wheels, but unlike your car or truck, which uses the front wheels for steering, the lift truck steers from the rear. This rear wheel steering produces a dramatically different turning radius than that of an automobile. Also, the lift truck loses stability as the load is raised, and under all conditions, the stopping distance is greater than that of an automobile.
When mounting the vehicle, always place your feet and hands correctly and pull yourself up into the driver's seat. Never jump on or off the machine, and once in the lift truck, remember to always keep your feet and your arms inside the vehicle.
As you sit in the driver's seat, make sure you know and understand where all the controls are located and how they function. Locate fuel and power indicators, braking and driving controls. Be aware that all trucks do not operate alike, and you need to understand their operation. Industrial trucks can be powered by several different types of motors. This includes diesel, gasoline, propane gas, and electricity. The operation and maintenance of these power plants are different and can affect how each is driven. Also, areas in the plant may be restricted to certain types of trucks that can be used.
As you steer and maneuver through the plant, remember that the lives of many people depend upon how safely you drive.
Lift trucks are not operated like other vehicles and are subject to hazards that, if were confronted by other vehicles, would be relatively safe. Remember that the steering is from the rear and produces wide swings at corners that can allow the lift truck to strike pedestrians or storage racks. Steering is also affected by the load on some trucks, in that a turning lift truck wants to continue its art in an ever-tightening turn. The opposite is true when the lift truck is traveling in reverse. You must be aware of this and keep the vehicle under control.
Control and stability are key to safe industrial truck operations. And to achieve this, you must be able to see where you're driving. If the load you're moving blocks your forward vision, then you must turn and drive rearward. Never drive without a clear view in the direction of travel. Other objects that can block your vision and change the operating characteristics of the lift truck are special attachments.
Some lift trucks have devices that are designed to pick up drums. Others have cages for personnel which have additional safety requirements that include personal fall protection. Some have protruding attachments that pick rolls of materials. Other devices compress material to lift and move it, making a pallet unnecessary. No matter what the attachment you will be using, the rules are the same. Know and understand their characteristics and maintain safe operations at all times.
Every powered industrial truck has a load capacity. This information can be found on the manufacturer's identification plate, which is attached to the vehicle. As you can see in this example, the lift truck weighs over 7,000 pounds, and the maximum load capacity is 3,500 pounds.
This is only true when the load center is 24 inches from the mast and 24 inches from the load base. As these dimensions change, stability of the vehicle will be reduced.
Vehicle stability must be maintained at all times if the lift truck is to remain upright.
To achieve this, the lift truck uses the battery or motor, plus an additional large counterweight located on the back of the truck to balance the load laterally as well as longitudinally. This creates a triangle of stability. The stability triangle works like this. The vehicle is supported at 3 points, and this is true even if it has 4 wheels, because the steering axle of most trucks is attached to the truck by means of a pivot pin in the center of the axle.
So, how does the triangle relate to tip-overs? Like this. The unloaded vehicle has its center of gravity located near the center of the truck.
When the vehicle is loaded, the center of gravity shifts forward in the direction of the load. As the load is raised, the truck becomes less stable. The center of gravity of the lift truck, combined with the load's center of gravity, produces a new center of gravity. If the combined centers of gravity remain inside the stability triangle, the vehicle is stable. But when the center of gravity and the line of action falls outside the triangle, the vehicle will continue to tip over.
You can't operate safely if your industrial truck is not in a safe operating condition. Therefore, before beginning your work period, make sure you perform a mandatory vehicle checkout.
Test the horn, lights, brakes, and backup alarm if used. If you discover any malfunctions, note it on the checkout sheet, tag the vehicle out of service, and notify your supervisor or other designated person. Never attempt to make repairs unless you're trained and authorized by your company.
The pre-operational checkout benefits everyone in the plant. Before operating your truck, check out the working gear and the safety equipment.
Check the operating controls and make sure they work properly to prevent any potential hazards that may occur. This includes inspection of hydraulic hoses and connections and other parts which may show wear. Don't forget to inspect the forks